This video is brought to you by these YouTube members. Thank you guys so much for your continued support. This video is also brought to you by next week's video, the top 10 2021 characters as chosen by you guys, the BBS community. If you haven't done so yet, click the link in the description below to vote on your top 10, which I will then use to make the video. Hello everyone and welcome to the top 10 Christmas characters on Bleach Brave Souls. Now initially this year I thought we were only gonna get the two, Toshiro and Orihime. To my surprise, we ended up doubling that number with Nini and Noel. Now I didn't do one of these last year, and since the last time I did it in 2019, we've also got some new Christmas Resurrected characters. So I was actually really excited to make this. With that said, let's begin.
さあ、楽しいディナーの始まりよ。はい。
Kicking things off, we have the Christmas version of Rangiku, a character that was long overdue. Now granted, when she came out I was slightly disappointed because they decided to give her an Espada killer, but that's really the only negative thing I can say about her. Everything else is great. She's got a really high SP, Berserker at 20%, Frenzy, and she can inflict debilitating paralysis on all of her attacks. Plus, if an enemy is paralyzed, she deals 20% more damage across the board. She has a Beam Shot Strong Attack 1, a Strong Attack 2 that hits a large area in front of her, and a Hybrid Vortex move Strong Attack 3 that not only affects a large area in front of her, but also hits multiple times, increasing the likelihood of inflicting paralysis. Then we have her special, hands down the best thing about this character. Not only does it inflict paralysis, but it also deals massive damage thanks to the weakened defense ability. In addition to that, she heals herself and the entire party for 60% of their total health. Now with that killer, she's not going to be overly useful in anything that multiplies the killer by a significant amount. Luckily, these days we have so many different game modes and so many different ways to increase SP that this is beginning to matter less and less. It is still super important though, which is why I only ended up putting her at number 10.
わしからプレゼントをやろう。メリークリスマスじゃ。あらあら。
Next on the list, we have the Christmas version of Yoroichi. It's weird, I still remember when she first came out, and in my mind she's still such a new character even though she came out on the first half of this game at this point. Anyway, this Yoroichi has a really high SP as well as Frenzy. She can also inflict debilitating freeze on all of her attacks, and her Strong Attack 1 is very likely to do so, thanks to it being a shape shot that hits a ridiculous number of times. Her Strong Attack 2 is a lunge move, and her Strong Attack 3 is a full screen. She can spam these attacks thanks to her Strong Attack Recharge link, and in addition to all of them being able to deal freeze, she's also completely immune to it. This Yoroichi also has a Soul Reaper killer, and because she is a Yoroichi, she's able to flash step multiple times. She may not have long stride, but it still helps with clearing areas faster and avoiding enemy specials. In fact, because of that and her Strong Attack 1, she's actually pretty good at taking out bosses. Aside from that, there's not much more to this character. Hopefully she'll get resurrected next year, and I'm excited to see what they do with her.
Jingle bell, jingle bell, hoo 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 hoo. 月の明かりでチャッピーが舞うのだ。
Next up is the Christmas version of Rookia, a character whose special you should never ever skip. In my opinion, the banner that featured this Rookia was resurrected a year too early. Her banner actually came out after the first round of manga characters, and at the time of this recording, those have still not been resurrected, though I feel like it's coming soon. Early or not though, she's actually a very good resurrected character, with one of the highest SPs in the entire game, even higher than some of the characters coming out now, as well as a full stamina damage link of 20% and Frenzy. When she got resurrected, she also got the ability to recover 16% of her total health anytime she entered a new area. This secondary link pairs really well with the first one, and it helps keep her damage high. Speaking of which, she went from having a plus 20 bruiser to a plus 40 bruiser that becomes plus 60 when her health is full, thanks to her link. She also has long reach at 20%, making her normal attack actually viable. This Rookia can also inflict debilitating freeze on all of her attacks with the exception of her Strong Attack 2, since that one is a barrier move, which also helps keep her health full. Finally, we have her special. Not only is it guaranteed to inflict freeze, but it also gets that 20% boost whenever her health is full, pushing that devastation to 60%. And after she got resurrected, she also got the weakened defense ability, letting it and any other follow-up attack deal more damage after the special is used. Combine all of this with the Soul Reaper killer, and you have yourself a really great character even by today's standards. Next up, we have the Christmas version of Nell. This Nell has a really high SP, as well as Berserker at 20%, a strong attack recharge link of 14%, Frenzy, and some really great strong attacks, including a Beam Shot strong attack 1, a strong attack 2 that's a hybrid vortex move that gathers enemies in one spot before hitting them one final time, and a full screen strong attack 3. She may not have Havoc, but all of these attacks have great range and they can all inflict debilitating freeze. The strong attack 2 in particular is more likely to do so because it hits more times than the average strong attack 2. In addition to being able to deal freeze with everything, she's also completely immune to it, and thanks to that boosted link, she can spam these attacks more frequently. And honestly, that's about it. She has no particular gimmick aside from the last attack on her normal attack being a different shape every time. She's just a really solid character with a solid kit. Sometimes that's all it takes.
パーティーはこれからよ。キャンドルを灯してレッツクリスマス。
Next up is another resurrected character that also came out in the same Rookia banner, the first iteration of Christmas Rookia. Now I've always really liked this character. Not Rookia, just the Christmas version of Rookia. She's always been very fun, and her strong attack 2 is kind of unique. When she got resurrected, she got so much better, and she's one of the best links to have in the entire game. Not only does she have a really high SP, but also a strong attack damage link, and now a strong attack recharge link, letting her use her strong attacks more frequently. All of her strong attacks and her special have a chance to inflict debilitating burn, and they all have great range thanks to Havoc being at 20. With a lunge move strong attack 1, another 2-part lunge move strong attack 2, and a beyond full screen strong attack 3. This character is definitely still usable by today's standards, though you're more than likely going to use her as a link, because she is a really good link. In fact, if it wasn't for that secondary link, I'd probably put Nell in front of her. It's really because you can use her as a standalone character and a link that she ended up being above Nell. Still, she's a really fun character, a really great character, and one that I highly recommend maxing out if you happen to have her.
あ、遅いじゃない。メリークリスマス。
みんな。
Next up is another Christmas Rookia. Now I won't lie, this Rookia, the last Rookia, and Nell are kind of interchangeable in terms of placement on this list, at least in my mind. Nell has a superior kit and immunity to freeze, the previous Rookia has great range on her strong attack 3 and a phenomenal link, and this Rookia has an increased chance of inflicting freeze to heart hollows. Like the other two, she also has a really high SP, an increase on strong attack damage by 20%, Frenzy, and a strong attack recharge link, hers being 14, same as Nell's. All of these attacks can inflict freeze, and like I said, a much higher chance to inflict them on heart hollows, with her strong attack 1 being more likely to do so since it's a shaped shot that hits multiple times. Her strong attack 2 hits a large area in front of her, and her strong attack 3 is full screen. The reason I ended up putting her above the other two though is because her ability is a lot harder to replicate. There are other characters with strong attack damage and strong attack recharge links, and getting immunity to freeze is really easy. Or, you know, just don't get frozen. Disable her on her heart hollows is way more useful in more situations, like Senkaimon, guild quests, and bi-weekly events, which is why I ended up putting her above the other two. That said, all three are really phenomenal characters, and they're all definitely worth maxing out if you have them.
クリスマスケーキ作ってみました。じゃがいもがポイントだよ。
Okay, I'm gonna miss the characters with brief descriptions, because here we go. Coming in at number 4, we have the Christmas version of Orihime. Well, I'm surprised it took this long. This Orihime has a really high SP, as well as Berserker at 40%, Havoc at 20, Frenzy, and a strong attack recharge link. All of her attacks have a chance to inflict debilitating burn, with the exception of her strong attack 2. This is because her strong attack 2 is both a heal move and a barrier move, and she has the ability multi-barrier, giving her and the entire party an additional 2 barriers anytime she uses it, for a total of 5 for her and 3 for the party. This ability greatly increases her durability, and it also deals a pretty considerable amount of damage in an area very near full screen. She's also got a Beam Shot strong attack 1, that while not as far reaching as other Beam Shots does have a wider reach, and a beyond full screen strong attack 3. Orihime also has an Arankar killer, and she has the ability to read hollow dodges, and in addition to having that heal move strong attack 2, she also has an ability that heals herself and the entire party for 20% of their total health anytime they enter a new area. She's hands down one of the best support characters in the entire game, and she also happens to be a link slot character, which makes her one of the more valuable characters. While she is impressively durable and you can absolutely auto with her, she may do things a little slower because of that strong attack too. Still, it doesn't take away from the fact that she's one of the best seasonal characters in the entire game.
そこで待ってろ。メリークリスマス。
Next up is actually the only male character in this entire video, the Christmas version of Toshiro. Now this version of Toshiro has a really high SP as well as Berserker at 40%, Frenzy, Havoc at 20, and a strong attack recharge link. In addition to that, all of his attacks have a chance to inflict debilitating freeze, and he's extremely likely to do so when up against tech no affiliation characters. Actually strike that, he's extremely likely to do so just in general. This is because he has an ability that gives him a chance to freeze enemies at random every 5 seconds, and his strong attack 2 is a hybrid vortex move that gathers enemies in one spot before pushing them back, hitting an increased number of times and greatly increasing the chance of inflicting freeze. His other 2 strong attacks are also very impressive, with a beam shot strong attack 1 and a strong attack 3 that hits a very wide area in front of him, an area beyond full screen despite it not being an actual full screen attack. In addition to all of this, if an enemy is frozen, he deals 20% more damage to that enemy, 40% more in arena mode. And as we established, this is extremely likely. In addition to being the master of freeze, he's also completely immune to it, which just kinda makes sense for this character. And on top of all this, like Orihime, he's also a potion drop character, making him one of the more valuable characters in this game. You know, with him being an ice type character, I'm surprised it took up to this year to finally get a Christmas version of him. Okay, so this year I'm actually putting the honorable mentions right before the number 2 spot instead of right before the number 1. Mostly because it's really not a surprise who took the last 2 spots.
準備は整いましたね。願い事は決まりましたか？プレゼントがもらえるようにいい子にしていましょうね。プレゼントを届けに来ましたよ。どうぞ受け取ってください。メリークリスマス。よいしょっと。あ、内緒だよ。
なぜ連れて行ってくださらなかったのですか。Yoroichi様。何が。
さて配るとしよう。メリークリスマスだ。
ありがとうワーズワース。お寿司ちゃん、どうしたんですか？メリークリスマス。でしょ。
Okay, so this is honestly one of the hardest placements I've ever had to do. Nini and Noelle are some of the best characters in the entire game, not just in terms of Christmas or seasonal characters, to the point where I actually had to get a little nitpicky to end up on where I did. That, and I actually had to do some math. Like, I have the formula for calculating strong attack damage, and ended up plugging in all the numbers to figure out just who hits harder. And the answer is Noelle, at least when she gets the boost to her SP. I guess I should start from the beginning. Noelle has a really high SP, as well as Berserker at 40%, a strong attack recharge link, Havoc at 20, Frenzy, and an ability that increases her SP stat by 80% if she inflicts a status ailment, which is extremely likely to happen because she has an ability that increases the chance of inflicting a status ailment to power hollows and no affiliation characters. Also, she has a double killer, something that for other characters would be the ultimate thing, but for these two, it's just another feature. Now all of her attacks have a chance to inflict debilitating weakening, and her strong attack 2 in particular is very likely to do so because it's a hybrid vortex move that gathers enemies in one spot and then pushes them back, perfect for crowd control and also good against bosses. Her strong attack 1 is also extremely likely to do so. It's a shape shot knockback move that hits a really high number of times and pushes the enemies even further than that strong attack 2. Then we have her strong attack 3 that, thanks to the Havoc, is beyond full screen. All of these attacks ignore guard because she has guard break, and they have potential to deal a massive amount of damage because you're more than likely going to be boosted on your SP. It's not a guarantee, but it is extremely likely. Next we have her special, which not only inflicts weakening, but also comes with bombardment, making it hit twice. It also grants protection status to any ally alive when she uses the special, and brings them back if they were to go down anytime after. This is an ability that's very useful to have in any situation, and it makes her special one of the best in the entire game. Noelle, much like the 2 characters before her, is also a potion drop character, but she's also a super potion drop character. So if you thought Toshiro and Orihime were valuable, they really have nothing on her.
始めましょう。私からのプレゼントよ。受け取りなさい。
Okay, so personally I like Noelle more than Nini. Noelle does have a higher damage potential, and I'm a big fan of her special, but Nini's damage is more consistent, and doesn't really rely on a status element. Now be ready, cause I'm about to get a little nitpicky on both of these characters, since you kinda have to compare them. Nini has a really high SP, as well as Frenzy at 2, and a boosted strong attack recharge link of 14%. Like Noelle, she can also inflict debilitating weakening on all of her attacks, also has Havoc at 20, also has Guard Break, and is also a potion and super potion drop character. Also like Noelle, she also has a double killer, except hers is Soul Reaper and no affiliation, which is better than Hollow and no affiliation, since Soul Reapers are the most common enemies in the game. And if you fight a boss, it's more likely to be a Soul Reaper than a Hollow. Speaking of bosses, both characters are very equipped to handle them. Both of Noelle's strong attacks 1 and 2 are great for keeping enemies at bay, especially bosses. While Noelle's strong attack 2 is great against regular enemies and bosses, her strong attack 1, while effective on regular enemies, is really more suited against bosses since it's so narrow. Nini's on the other hand is a beam shot, which is much more effective against regular enemies and encompasses a much wider range. Her second strong attack is a crawling vortex move, which is a bit slower than Noelle's, but basically accomplishes the same thing. It's great for crowd control and pushes the enemies back. Plus, because of the Frenzy at 2, it actually hits more times. As for the strong attack 3, they're both exactly the same, beyond full screen strong attack 3s. That was actually the strong attack I did all the math on, and realized that Noelle actually does more damage with her strong attack 3 despite it hitting less times, if her SP is boosted by 80%. Which again, is very likely but not guaranteed, in which case it would be Nini's that hits harder, and Nini is far more likely to inflict weakening, not just because she has Frenzy at 2, but also because she has an ability that increases the chance of inflicting a status ailment to all Mind Soul Reaper and no affiliation enemies. In addition to that, she's also got Innervator, which is an ability that can randomly inflict weakening to enemies every 5 seconds. Nini also has Sprinter at 2, making her faster and much more likely to dodge enemy specials. Nitpicking a bit more, it also makes her a great candidate for Long Stride if you unlock additional abilities for her. Speaking of additional abilities, you don't actually have to give her the ability to hit hidden enemies, since she can already do that on her own, not only freeing up that ability slot, but also an accessory slot, making her a faster character. So yeah, honestly, the two are very, very good characters, and the number 1 spot could honestly go either way. Noelle has a superior special, as well as higher damage potential, but Nini has the better killer, better link, better strong attack 1, and can hit hidden enemies, which is why I ended up giving the number 1 spot to her. Guys, this was an easy list up until the very end, but I really hope you guys enjoyed. If you disagreed, that's fine. It's the internet, people do that. But either way, I want to thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you have a very Merry Christmas.